Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago Opposition's media briefing this Sunday, the 9th of March, 2025, discussing the energy and financial sectors. Today we have presenting MP David Lee, the Shadow for Energy, and MP Davendranath Tancoo, Shadow for Finance. We thank you for joining us, and we will begin our broadcast shortly. In the meanwhile, please share the live.
No more rain, no more rain, no more rain, no more rain. No left foot, right foot again. No more struggle, no more strain, no more pain. We want to see we way, we want a brighter day. No more Rowley again. Bye bye Rowley, bye bye, bye bye Rowley, bye bye. We're not watching for you. We tired of the bloodshed, tired of the taxes, tired of the potholes and all the excuses. Tired of no water, tired of stretching a dollar, tired of the high grocery bills. No left foot, right foot again. No more struggle, no more strain, no more pain. We want to see we way, we want a brighter day. No more Rowley again. Bye bye Rowley, bye bye, bye bye Rowley, bye bye. We're not watching for you. We tired of the bloodshed, tired of the taxes, tired of the potholes and all the excuses. Tired of no water, tired of stretching a dollar, tired of the high grocery bills. No left foot, right foot again. No more struggle, no more strain, no more pain. We want to see we way, we want a brighter day. No more Rowley again. Bye bye Rowley, bye bye, bye bye Rowley, bye bye. We're not watching for you. No more rain, 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 no more rain. No left foot, right foot again. No more struggle, no more strain, no more pain. We want to see we way, we want a brighter day. No more Rowley again. Bye bye Rowley, bye bye, bye bye Rowley, bye bye. We're not voting for you. Bye bye Rowley, bye bye, bye bye Rowley, bye bye. We're not voting for you.
The UNC built 106 schools, gave thousands of free laptops, textbooks, and scholarships. We expanded GATE and skills training, constructed the Debe UWI campus, the Nursing Academy, the Aviation campus, the Drilling Academy, and the Couva Children's Hospital. We created the Children's Life Fund, the Children's Authority, and over 55,000 new jobs. Vote for a leader who loves you and your children. Vote UNC.
We stand united in the belief that if you empower a community, the community empowers the country.
We are the party that gave every child a secondary school education since 2001.
By building more schools in 11 years than others did in 40. We believe that no child,
Rich or poor, should be left behind.
which is why we give every 4-month student a laptop to expand their minds and their dreams.
We are the party that put police cars back on the streets.
And gave the police a $1,000 bonus because we believe that we should support the persons who are protecting you.
We are the party that reduced the murder rate to its lowest in 14 years. We expanded GATE, stopped the property tax, and increased maternity leave.
We are the party that invested in you and in your community. by investing in schools, community centers, lighted parks, 24-hour health centers, and the most extensive road repair program in decades.
We believe that education is always a solution and that no one should have to pick between sending their child to school or buying food.
We are the party that works for you. We are the first responders in every situation, working to deliver a better standard of living for you and your family.
And most importantly, we have confidence in you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is not a campaign, it's a movement based on building communities and strengthening families.
Come out and join us, and together we will get the nation working and moving again. Our children will once again have access to gate and technology.
We will improve healthcare.
By cutting the time it takes to see a doctor in an emergency, we will establish a senior citizen unit in every major hospital and staff the hospital with the doctors and nurses you need to create a first-class healthcare system. We will focus on creating high-paying jobs, fixing our laws to remove red tape, and ensuring that you and your family are safer. We will reduce corporate taxes to jumpstart the economy, create a special investment zone along the East-West corridor, and work with entrepreneurs to build a digital economy. This is an investment in your community to move the nation forward and get TNT working again.
Whether you are from 4th Street in Barataria to Railway Road in Dow Village, from Green Street in Tunapuna to Clark Road in Debe, from La Hokita to Moruga, from Mayaro to Scarborough, we are one people with the same dreams of a better tomorrow. And when we stand together, we win together. We are UNC and proud.
Good morning, viewers, listeners out there on all social media platforms. Today, this morning, Sunday, the 9th of March, I'm joined here this morning with my colleague, my brother, my friend, my parliamentary colleague also, the member for Parliament for Oropouche West, Mr. Davendranath Tancoo. He'll be joining me this morning. We have a few things that we would like to highlight here this morning. I will go first. I am the Member of Parliament for Pointe-a-Pierre, David Lee, and I will go first. As I said, I have a few issues to discuss on the energy subject matters, especially on the Pointe-a-Pierre refinery, and also the lease or sale of the refinery to the Nigerian firm called Oando, and also to discuss a few issues on the Dragon gas deal and the Venezuela cross-border issues, and some false claims in the energy sector. After my presentation, MP Tancoo will take his turn, and I'm sure he will enlighten us on certain issues that are happening or has happened in our economy, especially from the Minister of Finance, of matters that would have been transpiring over the last few months, and also a Privy Council matter that has taken attention and attracted the public, the population at large of Trinidad and Tobago. So, good morning, as I said, Trinidad and Tobago. Today, our country faces the most critical question and challenge to emerge in decades. And I ask, who do you want in charge of your economic, social, and human development of your country? After 10 years of the same administration, which is now attempting a political facelift by changing its leader, our country faces grave uncertainties on its future abilities to earn revenue, to sustain our social safety net, and most importantly, the ability to guarantee prosperity for our citizens. On the eve of a general election, we in the opposition believe that the people of our nation requires facts over fiction. We believe the people of our nation deserve sustainability over sound bites. This morning, we are not here for politicking or electioneering, but to expose the decade of energy untruths, which have crippled our nation's prosperity for 10 years by putting the truth on the national agenda. For the last decade, this nation has endured a decline in our national revenue, our foreign exchange, and our energy security because of three major untruths of this government: the Pointe-a-Pierre refinery untruths, the Dragon deal tales, and the oil and gas production fiction. This morning, I will expose the facts, the fiction, and the reality of all. For the last 7 years, this government has persistently spread untruths on the Pointe-a-Pierre refinery. Last week, we saw yet another attempt by the Minister of Energy, Minister Young, to mislead the population that Petrotrin was not profitable. The Minister of Energy continues to blur the facts, hide the reality, and present a misleading picture on the profitability of the operations of Petrotrin. In his attempt to dismiss the fact that Petrotrin made an operational profit of 1.6 billion TT dollars in its last year of operation in 2018, the Minister of Energy has produced a figure from the consolidated financial statements of Petrotrin 2018 stating that Petrotrin made a loss of $16 billion. This is a misleading narrative which must be dismissed. The fact is, Petrotrin did make an operating profit of 1.6 billion TT dollars in its last year of operations through its dynamic, productive, and effective operations. The loss that Minister Young now seeks to put forward to the population has not been accrued or encountered as a result of Petrotrin's operations, but in fact, this loss of $16 billion has occurred due to impairment costs on an impairment loss of $15 billion, which resulted due to the government's decision to cease and stop operations of the refinery as contained on page 64 of the very consolidated financials that Stuart Young has referenced. Let me list the details to show how the government has been gaslighting the population on Petrotrin. On April 4, 2019, the Trinidad Guardian reported that unaudited financial statements of Petrotrin showed that Petrotrin had made an operational profit of US $250.28 million or TT dollars 1.67 billion during its last year in existence. The consolidated financial statements for Petrotrin as of September 18, page 13, show that Petrotrin had increased its revenue from $20.3 billion in 2017 to $24.5 billion in 2018. Most importantly, it noted that Petrotrin's cost of sales had increased from $18.9 billion in 2017 to $39.1 billion in 2018. This alarming increase in the cost of sales by $20 billion is accounted for in Note 8 of the Consolidated Financial Statement, page 64, where it states that, and I quote, "The decision to cease operations and restructure was considered an impairment trigger that required an impairment test on property, plant, equipment, and tangible assets and goodwill. The group recorded a net impairment loss of $15.4 billion. On October 10, 2019, months after it was reported that Petrotrin made an operational profit of $1.67 billion, the chairman of TPHL, Michael Quaminer, said Petrotrin made an after-tax loss of $16.4 billion. What is even more important to note, that on page 899 of the very same consolidated statement, it shows where Petrotrin generated cash of $1.9 billion as of 2018. Add this to the fact that Petrotrin had received no government subventions for 2018, 2017, and 2016. It shows that Petrotrin was profitable. The reality is, Trinidad and Tobago, Petrotrin's operation produced a profit of $1.67 billion for Trinidad and Tobago. However, this entire profit was eroded after tax due to the impairment costs incurred by the government's decision to shut down the refinery. Petrotrin would have never made a $16 billion loss had the refinery remained open, as this impairment cost would not have been incurred. Petrotrin's operations were profitable. Stuart Young is simply playing with numbers to hide the reality of this government's reckless destruction of the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery. Now I want to turn, so I just gave you the facts about the Petrotrin refinery. No matter how Stuart Young wants us to come and spin it, and Prime Minister Rowley, the Petrotrin refinery was profitable up until 2018 when they decided to shut down the refinery. And because of their decision to shut down the refinery, the accountants had to produce or had to provide an impairment provision. And if they did not, if they did not shut down the refinery and kept it open as a going concern, which the opposition has always said, that impairment provision would not have incurred. I want to take a time here now to discuss what is happening with the Petrotrin refinery. And over the carnival, just before the carnival, I think Carnival Thursday, as we call it, Thursday before Carnival, Stuart Young, as the acting Prime Minister, came and made a statement about the refinery, the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery. And it says, there's a headline in one of the newspapers, says, Oando eyes the Guaracara refinery. Oando eyes the Guaracara refinery. And I would like to get into that because we need clarity. Clarity is needed on this whole process of this new player that this government says will be the company or the firm that will be taking over the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery. Like clockwork, brothers and sisters, Trinidad and Tobago, the government has pulled out its #1 election football. I'm sorry I did not bring our football here with me this morning, but again, and I have been saying it time and time again, that this #1 election football by this PNM government will be pulled out. And I like clockwork, I said, it has been pulled out again. It's #1 election mama guy. It's #1 election mama guy. And that is the sale of the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery. Last week, the Minister of Energy informed the country that the cabinet had taken a decision to accept the recommendation of the evaluation committee, and I'll get into that Oando PLC, a Nigerian firm, is the preferred bidder. What is important is the Minister of Energy at no point confirmed that Oando had received the refinery or leased the refinery, but instead he said, and I quote, Cabinet took a decision to inform Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited, TPHL, to the non-objection of the Evaluation Committee's recommendation for the sale or lease of the refinery. And the ball is now in TPHL's court to pursue the deal with Oando. Who is TPHL? TPHL is led by the chairman, Michael Kwamina, who we all know is the personal attorney of the present Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, and holds several board positions, Michael Kwamina that is, in certain state companies. This is a refinery, the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery, deja vu all over again like 2020. When they told us days before the election of 2020 that the government was ready and waiting to sign over the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery to Patriotic/OWTU. Days before the 2020 elections, they told the country, this government, that the government was ready to negotiate to hand over the refinery, but never did. Yet again, this government is attempting to give false hope without any single detail about the negotiation. They want the country to believe that jobs are coming back. They want us to believe that foreign exchange and revenue will return. And they want us to believe that prosperity is returning to the fence line communities like Gasparillo, Claxton Bay, parts of San Fernando, Marabella. We all heard this in 2020. We all heard this. But as a country, we cannot believe or be fooled into thinking any of that will return when Oando has not negotiated TPHL. Who is to say the deal will not fall through as it did with Patriotic? Is another mama guy. As a country, we cannot believe or digest any of these grand promises where Oando as a company has not given any commitment to working alongside our citizens as well as answering serious questions on their operational abilities to a stable performance. And I'll get further into that. This morning, in the national interest, we call on the government and Oando to answer some serious questions as it relates to Oando's ability to undertake transparent operations to the benefit of our citizens. On Thursday, and I'll give you a breakdown of this Oando's story. On Thursday, the 27th of February 2025, the PNM Cabinet gave its non-objection for a sale or lease of the former Petrotrin refinery to Oando PLC, Nigeria. The acting Prime Minister Stuart Young indicated that the financial strength gave Oando an advantage in the bidding process, and I quote, "The government believes that Oando's financial strength and expertise will help revitalize the Pointe-a-Pierre refinery and contribute to the country's energy future," unquote, close quote. On the two occasions that the approval of a no objections for Oando was brought to Cabinet, the sitting Prime Minister, which is Dr. Rowley, was absent. And I ask the question, the opposition is asking the question, was this deliberate? There should be questions to know that we would like to pose to Prime Minister Rowley, as well as members of the media must demand some answers. And I ask certain questions. I want to ask Prime Minister Rowley, has there been any meetings, has he been in any meetings or dialogue with this Oando company, either on his trips to the continent of Africa or when he first met the company at Guyana Energy Conference in February of 2023? If this is in fact so, is this the reason why he chose to not be part of the cabinet deliberations on this matter? Another question I would like to ask, based on the statement of the acting Prime Minister Stuart Young, as indicated earlier, that the government's belief that Oando's financial strength will help revitalize the refinery, the only entity that we have seen worse stated than other than Oando was our Trinidad and Tobago economy, and my colleague, MP Tancoo, will go further into that. Oando's recent, and I want to get into some of Oando's financial situations. Oando's recent challenges with financial reporting and trading suspensions have been widely covered by media houses globally. The acting Prime Minister Stuart Young took front last week when he told the country that he expects Oando to come under attack over the fact that it was delisted on not one but two stock exchanges in Nigeria and South Africa. I want to let Stuart Young know we are not going to attack Oando's for those breaches. We are asking for, and I ask Prime Minister Rowley, and I will call names, Prime Minister Rowley, Acting Prime Minister Stuart Young, Mrs. Camille Robinson-Regis. I also want to ask the UK High Commissioner Vishnu Danpal as Chairman of the Evaluation Committee, the other 10 members on the members of the Evaluation Committee, all sitting members of Cabinet who have all lost their voices. The board of TPHL, led by Mr. Michael Kwamina, executives of TPHL, like the infamous Mustaq Mohammed, and by no means least the team at Scotiabank, which has been paid millions of dollars to validate this deal with Oando. I ask all of them to make public with what due diligence have you all done on this company, Oando PLC of Nigeria? We also plan to ask the Prime Minister, whenever we resume Parliament, about what was the criteria used and the due diligence used to choose Oando. We are in the possession of financial and compliance reports on Oando, which we will be sharing with members of media. I will surmise just some of what we have found. And even up to this morning, we are unearthing more and more worrying information. What we have been told by Acting Prime Minister Stuart Young was the Oando PLC has been suspended from both the Nigerian and Johannesburg stock exchanges in the past as a result of Oando not filing their financials in accordance with the regulation on time. He further stated that both infringers are now satisfied. What he wanted to say is that all is well with their preferred bidder that has not been financially compliant. In fact, it was news to me to know that Oando's repeated delays in meeting these deadlines have resulted in multiple suspensions over the years. Further, Oando is currently, hear this one, Dave? Further, Oando is currently seeking to be delisted from both stock exchanges, which is the Johannesburg, South Africa, and the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And we ask the question, why? So that they can, is it so that they can continue to be financially non-compliant? Ladies and gentlemen, listening and members of the media here today, I have just outlined some of the most basic financial data on this company. And I leave it up to you and the media out there to discern for yourselves. If this is the same company that Stuart Young and this PNM government is saying that they are here to save our refinery and this country due to their financial strength and stability, we have some questions further to ask him. Oando's financial challenges are just too numerous to mention. And I just mentioned a couple, Dave, in my short time here. There are some financial issues like the high debt levels. Oando's total liabilities have significantly exceeded its total assets. The company has a debt-to-equity ratio of negative 1,000%. You hear that, Dave? The company has a debt-to-equity ratio of negative 1,000%. These are very troubling signs, and there are a lot more of financial red flags about this company called Oando. And it's too numerous for me to go in at this point in time, but I am asking the media and the viewers out there to do the homework, and we'll talk more about it in the coming days. And finally, we also ask, where is the local content? Who are Oando's local partners? Is it that they have come here with no local knowledge and a refinery know-how, as it can be a secret to all? There are certain things about Oando that has been kept a secret, and we are asking this government, do not hide behind that non-disclosure clause that Stuart Young always liked to talk about, NDT. And we are also asking, is the government agreeing also to give Oando a certain percentage of crude oil that we produce from Heritage as part of the deal? Is the Minister of Energy has stated that Paria assets will be used by Oando. Today we ask, will the government either enter into a take or pay agreement for fuel and refined products from Oando as it did with Nikon? The government must tell the population what is the value of the lease on the refinery, or will it be a peppercorn rate of next to nothing as offered to Nikon? What about the Petrotrin loans and lien on the refinery? The population must never forget that Petrotrin was saddled with billions in debts due to the PNM Malcolm Jones. We ask, what will happen to these loans? Will the population be saddled with it when Oando takes away our assets? And what about the procurement regulator's role in this state asset, this lease? What is the role of the procurement regulator? And I'm sure my colleague, the Shadow Minister of Finance, Mr. Tancoo, will ask also those kind of questions. So we have a lot to say more about this Oando and Petroleum Refinery deal. It leaves much to be decided at this point in time, and as I said, it is their number one political football to be used whenever that election bell is rung. Because we had seen it in 2019, we had seen it in 2020, and again we are seeing it in the lead up to the general election of 2025. I now want to turn to a couple minutes. I just want to say something about the dragon gas. You know, there's an article on one of the daily newspapers, and it talks about, the heading was real dragon negotiations will take place. That's the headline. Real dragon negotiations will now take place. I always thought, Dave and myself, the opposition, always felt for the last 10 years that real negotiations were taking place on the dragon gas. So now that there's a new administration and government in the United States, President Trump, is it now that the media is now saying that the real dragon gas negotiation will now take place? And we ask the questions, and I want to get into that dragon gas issue that we have as an opposition. A few months ago, Minister Young boasted he could walk into the White House in the USA and Miraflores Flores in Venezuela, which is the White House equivalent in Venezuela, Dave, to negotiate for Trinidad and Tobago. He boasted on that. He even said that David Lee can't go there. I want to tell him here this morning, David Lee might quicker reach in the White House in USA and meet President Trump than he would. Suddenly his tune has changed, and he has gone from master negotiator to telling this country he cannot guarantee the dragon deal. These are his words, not David Lee or Dave Tancoo words. These are his words last week. For the last 3 years, this Minister of Energy has been jetting away to Caracas and Washington on this dragon gas deal. Yet in the last 2 weeks, not a single visit to either nation to secure the dragon deal. In the last 2 weeks, Minister Young has not even told us about a single phone call or guarantee from any notable official from either country that the dragon gas deal is safe. Suddenly, the Minister of Energy has gone from telling the country that a boom is coming in 2027, remember that, to now stating that he cannot provide any assurances on dragon gas. He has gone a few months ago was telling the whole country a boom is coming in 2027. And now, with a new administration in place, he is saying he cannot provide any insurances. The opposition, I want to say it clearly, the opposition is not celebrating or gloating over the newest uncertainty in a long history of vulnerabilities to impact this dragon gas deal. But we are angry in the national interest due to the fallacy and dream that this government sold Trinidad and Tobago for the last 10 years. We are angry that for a second time, dragon gas has fallen into trouble at the nation's expense because, as the government did in 2017-2018, they based all their hopes in a shaky project while failing to have proper contingencies in place to maintain economic stability. For the last 2 years, Minister Young has been recklessly selling the country a pipe dream that there will be a boom in 2027 due to cross-border gas, while ignoring the one route that would ensure energy security, and that is the exploration and monetization of our own resources in our own territorial waters. We reject the government's attempt to guide the public's attention away from their own ill-conceived action as they try to spark outrage against us, the opposition, by saying we don't care about Trinidad and Tobago's revenue stream and foreign exchange generation. We will stop them in their tracks. It is because we understood the grave, damning dangers to our economic stability that we called out this government over-reliance on the cross-border gas. From day one, the public records will show that we have never had an issue with the gas from the Dragon deal. But our major concern was the neglect and abandonment of our own waters for gas in our own territorial waters. The opposition has always based its questions on Dragon on the clear red flags present, such as the Shell's persistent failure to make a final investment decision on this Dragon gas deal. In November 2024, we raised concerns about when the Bolivia Act was passed in the U.S. House of Representatives, limiting business with Venezuela. The alarm bells were always there. Even more crucial, we have always premised our concern on this government's ability to secure, negotiate, or renew the conditions of all these cross-border deals, given their less than warm reactions to the Trump administration, accompanied by their questionable friendship with Maduro. Today, this is evident in Minister Young's inability to give any answers, directions, or even state who are the officials as well as the channels that the government will interact with to gain some discussions with the U.S. government on the Dragon gas deal. The opposition finds no joy in this approaching energy and economic turmoil. However, it must be bolted to the chest of this government, as in the last decade they have ignored the oil and gas reserves of Trinidad and Tobago, ignored deep water exploration, and failed to institute attractive investment regimes, all of which would have kept us away from this crisis. Last month, the Minister of Energy continued his modus operandi, issuing soundbites for political gain as opposed to sustainable delivery at the energy conference that was held in just a few weeks ago. There can be no resurgence in our national energy sector when mere weeks ago we entered into a deal to purchase fuel oil from Jamaica Petrojam, which is a non-oil producing company. There can be no resurgence as we experience our lowest oil production in over 60 years under this government, our lowest gas production under this government, and have witnessed the closure of key downstream plants on the Point Lisa's estate. As a matter of fact, Dave, that's the definition of regression underneath this PNM government. The Minister of Energy was disingenuously attempted to mask the government's present deepwater bids and exploration drive as a resurgence when in reality this should have been the focus from day one when this government took office 10 years ago. They have decimated our energy sector. It is clear that on the eve of an election, Minister Young is simply saying what people want to hear, when he doesn't have the track record, abilities, or capacity to deliver or repair the damage his government has caused in the energy sector in the last 10 years. So as I come to an end in my short presentation this morning, I want to ask certain things. Where is the accountability on the state of emergency? The 3-month period of the state of emergency is almost over, and this government is yet to account to the people of our nation. What have we gained for the suspension of our rights? And today, as I end, I would like to endorse the comments of our political leader, the leader of the opposition. The United National Congress is ready to win the next general election, given our growth in support from every cross-section of Trinidad and Tobago. The United National Congress coalition of interests and the UNC itself is gaining momentum each day because our citizens have accepted that when UNC wins, they win through better safety, security, healthcare, and prosperity. And also, when we win, you get a better country to govern. We thank you so much. I thank you this morning for taking your time to listen to me. And I will now turn over to my colleague, my friend, my brother, Mr. Davendranath Tancoo, the MP for Urupuch West. I thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother, Dr. David Lee. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, members of our viewing audience, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. My friend and colleague, Dr. Lee, has raised a series of tremendous concerns about the disposal of the national assets owned by every man, woman, and child of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want you to remember that, ladies and gentlemen. Whether it is Petrotrin, NGC, state lands, even the money in the treasury, our foreign reserves, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, these are all ours, yours and mine. And this government is required by law, convention, and practice to publicly account for the use of its resources, our resources, and to use those resources to improve the quality of lives of all our citizens. Have you been seeing that? The PNM has spent over $600 billion to date. Have your lives improved? Is it easier to get medical tests, surgeries, or even basic medicines at the hospitals and health centers? Are you getting water in your taps? When you lock your doors at night, can you sleep soundly knowing that you and your family are safe from criminals? How about when you go to the grocery or the parlor next door? Are you confident, ladies and gentlemen, that when your child studies hard and is qualified, that they will find a job? Can you drive on our nation's roads without fearing that you could damage your vehicles or even lose your life because of the horrendous states of our nation's roads? Can you easily access foreign exchange to buy stocks for your private business or to pay for anything? Do you, ladies and gentlemen, honestly believe that anything will get better under this PNM? If the answer to these and other quality of life issues is no, then I want you to ask yourself why. Whether it is Rowley 1.0 or Rowley 2.0, it is the same people with the same priorities benefiting the same people: PNM friends, family, and financiers. Money is clearly not the problem. In fact, this government has spent the equivalent of $500,000 for each person in this country. But the only persons whose lives have improved are the lives of PNM friends, family, and financiers. The money is being spent. It is not just being spent on you, the average citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Today, I want to have a conversation with you about how your tax dollars, these billions that you have been denied of, how your tax dollars have been used and abused by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. You see, we are in election season. The PNM is about to be booted out of office, and they know it. And then, now, as a result, comes the feeding frenzy. The PNM are in feeding frenzy mode, engaging in and covering up corruption, illegally awarding billions in contracts to their friends in flagrant violation of the procurement legislation, fattening the pockets of their lawyer friends, passing laws to give themselves tax concessions, facilitating tax evaders, their business friends who break the law by not paying taxes, giving them amnesty after amnesty after amnesty. But you, who pay your taxes on time, have to wait years for your VAT refund on the whim and fancy of Calm Imbut. Today, my beloved country has been crippled. As a country, our economy has regressed. Today, the real value of goods and services produced in our nation, what economists call the gross domestic product, is $35 billion less than it was a decade ago. The country has been pushed into a debt trap, having to borrow to pay loans and then borrow again to pay these new loans. And in the midst of all of that, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Minister of Finance, Calm Imbut, whose level of share incompetence is only matched by the repeated misinformation that he puts in the public domain and what I can only call misconduct in public office. And that is the same man, Calm Imbut, who shamelessly boasts that he has done a good job and now he wants time to finish that job, meaning another 5 years after he finishes the current 10-year period. You know, the warning signs were there since 2015, ladies and gentlemen. We must never forget the sight of this man giggling in glee as he raised taxes and boasted that they haven't rioted yet. And this is the same man, ladies and gentlemen, whose personal decisions and vindictiveness has cost taxpayers millions of dollars in fines and fees, but who remains protected by the P&M Boys Club, the Cosa Nostra, the P&M vow of silence to cover up each other's secrets, and the threat against anyone who dares to speak out of being killed politically. But time is longer than twine, ladies and gentlemen. As a patriotic citizen, I will not stand silent while this abuse of office continues. My party, the United National Congress, led by the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, will continue to hold this government to account without fear or favor, malice or ill will. And I have my leader's approval to give you the assurance, ladies and gentlemen, that when we form government in the next few months, those responsible for destroying our country, those who have presided over the flagrant wastage of your money without building a school or a police station, without putting medicines in hospitals to show, those guilty of misconduct in public office will be investigated and brought to justice. Let us start with one. I am certain that by now the country is familiar with the details of the unwarranted and disgusting attack on the person and character of the Auditor General of Trinidad and Tobago, Mrs. Jaiwanti Ramdas, by Minister Colm Imbert, aided and abetted by the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. Last week, Imbert issued a long press release claiming that the leader of the opposition, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, was wrong when she stated that $2.6 billion was missing and unaccounted for, and therefore her demand that the minister should be investigated was somehow mischievous. Now, I don't have to defend Mrs. Persad-Bissessar. She is eminently qualified and capable of dealing with Mr. Imbert. But we cannot allow the Minister of Finance to continue to mislead the country deliberately again. Based on numerous statements by Colm Imbert himself and the multiple documents in the public domain bearing signatures of officials of the Ministry of Finance, $2.6 billion have not been accounted for in our national accounts for the financial year 2023. Fact. To say otherwise is a blatant lie, but that has not stopped Colm Imbert. In fact, it was the refusal of the Honorable Auditor General to change the country's revenue accounts by $3.4 billion, which the Ministry of Finance, headed by Colm Imbert, was demanded in clear breach of international accounting standards that she add to the accounts. It was after the Auditor General's refusal to change the figures without auditing that the figure was adjusted downwards to the $2.6 billion that we are talking about today. And that money has still not been accounted for. By the stroke of a pen, ladies and gentlemen, $780 million vanished from the accounts of the Ministry of Finance. To date, the minister has not provided a single explanation about where that $780 million has gone to. Today, ladies and gentlemen, the national accounts of Trinidad and Tobago remain incomplete for 2023 because Imbert and his government are focused not on dealing with the problem, but on a personal vendetta against the character of a woman who stood strong on professional ethics. But not only are the 2023 public accounts unable to be completed, the 2024 national accounts have also been compromised. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not an oversight. It is a blatant dereliction of duty and an absolute failure on the part of the Minister of Finance, whose primary responsibility is to ensure proper financial management and accountability. We are the only country in the world ever to have had our national accounts frozen because of the insecurities of the Minister of Finance. But where is this money? Where is this $2.6 billion? What has been done with it? Has it been deposited into the consolidated funds without having been audited? Is it sitting somewhere in somebody's personal bank account generating interest? Has it already been used despite the fact that it has not been audited as required by law? Why is Imbert, ladies and gentlemen, why is Imbert and the government not interested in having this multi-billion-dollar fiasco resolved? More than a year has passed and the country is no more enlightened about this $2.6 billion that remains unreconciled by those who are supposed to be looking after this money. This is not their money, ladies and gentlemen. This is our money, and this is not small change. $2.6 billion could have provided life-saving surgery to every single citizen who needed it. $2.6 billion could have given every child of school age a laptop, with enough left over to provide every resource that the fire service and the police service have been begging for. $2.6 billion could have built and equipped a functional forensic science center in addition to providing the police and prison services with the vehicles and the resources they need to fight crime. You see, while Imbert twiddles his thumbs because his little ego has been bruised by a strong, independent woman teaching him about accountability and law, this country's accounts are in a mess because of calm Imbert. So there is still $2.6 billion which are currently not included in our national accounts and therefore is missing from the accounts. That deals with the first of the minister's lies. But this is not the only issue. The need for an investigation into Imbert is not because of the money that has not been accounted for. The investigation into the role of the Minister of Finance, Colm Imbert, in the attack on the person and character of the Auditor General, including making personal call, etc., attacks in Parliament, and the subsequent persecution of Ms. Ramdas in court. That is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, why there needs to be an investigation into the conduct of Colm Imbert. Watch and listen to this clip, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, and the entire of reference might have identified the minister's conduct, because she says, rightly or wrongly, that she felt she was being bullied and coerced into signing the accounts in circumstances where that understatement hadn't properly been reconciled. And what's more, the $780,000 that was first identified as part of the understatement was never reconciled.
And the minister is interested to find out.
Why doesn't the term of reference say, just as it identifies the Auditor General, why doesn't it say, please investigate the minister's behaviour?
Well, that's a good point, milady, but it does say...
in an even-handed terms.
Well, it does say to investigate the Auditor General's response to the attempts to bring this to her attention.
That's looking at her conduct. I'm interested to know to what extent the minister's conduct is going to be investigated, because if this was genuinely an even-handed investigation that wasn't designed to deflect the blame away from the minister and onto the Auditor General, it might have been
it would be more even-handed to say, investigate the actions of the minister and investigate the actions of the Auditor General, since they seem to be, in some ways, the main antagonists, if that's the right word, or participants in these series of events. But curiously, the minister is not singled out, but the Auditor General is. It might be said
the minister has made up his mind, as it were, about the conduct of the Auditor General.
Well, in the grounds for bias on page 6 of the electronic report, at paragraph 105, The allegation is that the minister is charged with ministerial responsibility for his ministry. The investigation concerns errors in maladministration on his watch. And he has defended the conduct of himself and his officials and disingenuously sought to shift the blame to the Auditor General. That would be an improper purpose.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is not a politician. That is a member of the highest legal fraternity in the Commonwealth, clearly incensed about the conduct of Minister Colm Imbert, suggesting as well a possible abuse of office and openly stating that Imbert should be investigated. Maybe this is why the Prime Minister and the PNM is anxious to remove the Privy Council as our highest court, because the PNM cannot manipulate the outcomes. There must be no cover-up, ladies and gentlemen. Imbert must tell this country who was the lawyer that provided the legal advice on the basis of which he acted. How were they selected? What was the cost of this vindictive excursion to the taxpayer? What projects had to be shelved to get money to pay for these lawyers? What purchases had to be denied so that money could be used to pay the PNM lawyers that were involved in this process? I have no expectation, ladies and gentlemen, that Imbert will fix this before he leaves. But you, the taxpayer and citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, must ensure that he goes. You, ladies and gentlemen, taxpayers and citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, must ensure that he goes so that we could get to the bottom of this. The PNM history of covering up is well known and again clearly visible here. What I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is within days of a UNC cabinet being sworn in, the UNC government will facilitate a meeting between the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank, and the Auditor General to work out a plan for the proper accounting of the monies not currently in the accounts of Trinidad and Tobago, and to ensure that we are able to close up the accounts for both 2023 and 2024 for Trinidad and Tobago. More than that, ladies and gentlemen, a UNC government will commission an investigation into the role of Mr. Imbert, exactly as demanded by the Honorable Leader of the United National Congress. This investigation will be transparent and professionally done, unlike the manipulated version commissioned by Imbert himself. He could run, but he cannot hide. But ladies and gentlemen, there are other aspects of the Auditor General's report for the financial year 2023 which Imbert fought hard not to be put into the public domain. The Auditor General discovered that in 2023, and I quote, known expenditure of $1 billion could not be verified, end quote. This is completely different from the anomalies in documentation, etc., submitted by various ministries. This is $1 billion spent without supporting documents to justify expenditure. According to the Auditor General's findings, 21 ministries and departments reported financial irregularities, amounting to a staggering $984,783.67 in missing expenditure, roughly $1 billion. The minister cannot simply hide behind technical excuses, as the report explicitly details which ministries and which divisions failed to adhere to proper accounting standards, procedures, and protocols, and which are repeatedly emphasized to prevent exactly this kind of audit scrutiny. For instances of funding improperly recorded, from instances of funding improperly recorded, repairs and maintenance paid for with no sign of works completed, and the rent of an unoccupied building, the Auditor General conducted her due diligence in identifying the failings and deception of this PNM government. She found $1 billion, there's more to come, but $1 billion in financial year 2023, Auditor General's report, that had been spent without accounting procedures, without any documentation being provided. Even more alarming is the fact that the vast majority of this mystery expenditure, $672.8 billion, the vast majority of this mystery expenditure was actually unaccounted for within the Ministry of Finance itself, headed by Colm Imbert. Added to this, $386 million worth of documents were not even submitted for audit examination. What is happening to the Ministry of Finance? Exactly who is minding the store? What is the minister doing? Is this one of the reasons why Colm Imbert was so incensed at the Auditor General? Because the audit findings from his own ministry revealed hundreds of millions of dollars in unaccounted for expenditure. The fact is that the money is missing, and we must find out where it has gone, who has received this money. You see, while Imbert was busy attacking the Auditor General for doing her job, he was not doing his job. This is a shameful indictment against Colm Imbert, the Minister of Finance. The minister and the ministry responsible for ensuring proper accountability, transparency, and the implementation of proper accounting standards for your money has been the very minister and ministry that is guilty of breaking the law. Now, Imbert will be anxious to throw some unnamed public servant under the bus, but it is Colm Imbert, Minister of Finance, who has the final authority and blame in this. Is the minister truly upset that the opposition leader has brought attention to what she described as government racketeering? You see, his frustration seems less about the accusations themselves and more about the fact that these financial irregularities are now in the public eye. The ongoing non-compliance with financial regulations, the persistent lack of supporting documents, and the emergence of non-existent or dubious trading companies without adequate explanations as to where vast sums of public funds have gone paint a troubling picture of financial mismanagement, starting at the top with the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance itself. Rather than providing transparency or concrete answers, the minister has been quick to deflect blame. The absence of critical financial records and the inability to properly track government transactions suggests more than just incompetence. And there's that. It raises the possibility of deliberate concealment. And the fact that this is a recurrent issue year after year means that it is facilitated by the minister and his minions. If there is nothing to hide, why is there such resistance to scrutiny? Why are the necessary documents either missing or simply never submitted for audit? No amount of political spin can erase the hard facts presented in the Auditor General's findings. The public, ladies and gentlemen, deserves clarity. And until there is full accountability for these financial inconsistencies, questions will continue to mount about the true nature of government spending and where the missing funds have actually gone. It is absolutely clear that the Ministry of Finance is in an absolute mess under this Minister of Finance. I challenge Imbert today from this podium to tell the country exactly what he has done about this $1 billion in unexplained expenditure since it was discovered more than 1 year ago. Who has been held accountable? What measures have been put in place to ensure that this does not happen again? I expect no response from the minister because he is directly complicit in this missing $1 billion. But it gets worse, ladies and gentlemen. The annual report of the Office of the Procurement Regulation 2023 to 2024 indicates that $5 billion, not the $1 billion from the ministry, $5 billion in government contracts were not awarded by public bodies via full competitive tender or via the use of proper approved procurement methods. What this means, ladies and gentlemen, is that in a single year, $5 billion in contracts were awarded by means of unlawful tendering, without legitimate evaluations, without transparent assessments, and in open violation of the procurement law. These are contracts awarded under P&M ministers, and P&M handpicked appointed directors who willingly, ladies and gentlemen, broke the law. Has the Minister of Finance done anything to plug this massive corruption, this immense free-for-all? This figure of $5 billion, ladies and gentlemen, is almost 10% of the nation's annual budget. Money that should have been spent on you, on medicines, pensions, food, equipment, on agriculture, on police vehicles, is being lost to corruption. And the Minister of Finance closes his eyes, turns his face, closes his ears, while the thieves raid the bank. Ask yourself why, ladies and gentlemen. Can you imagine what that additional $5 billion could have done if it was spent in ensuring that police have the resources to fix crime, or to create jobs, or to treat with the improvement of the agricultural sector, ladies and gentlemen, to treat with the high level of food imports? The procurement regulator, ladies and gentlemen, expressed great distress that despite the legislation being in place and multiple opportunities for training provided by the regulator's office itself, government ministries, PNM ministers, government ministries has failed to put the relevant resources in place to implement the procurement law. I want to remind citizens, ladies and gentlemen, that this law was developed by the Kamla Prasad Bisesa administration with only the regulations outstanding by 2015. This law was designed to ensure transparency in every stage of the award and implementation of state contracts. Simply, it was designed to prevent corruption. The PNM government refused to pursue the law for years. In fact, they gutted the legislation, removing billions of dollars from the oversight of this anti-corruption body. And even then, even now, PNM officials broke the law in awarding billions in secret contracts in complete violation of the law. I repeat my call made from this very platform before for the Minister of Finance to tell this country who got these contracts, which ministries and state boards awarded these contracts, what mechanism has been used to ensure that the taxpayer got value for money, how many of these contracts were awarded to ghost companies, why was the law ignored and deliberately broken, and who has been held liable and accountable for breaking the law. To date, neither Colman Burt nor any PNM official have said a single word about this multi-billion-dollar corruption, despite the fact that all of these contracts were presided over by a PNM government minister, with the Minister of Finance directly responsible for payments. This feeding frenzy must stop. And ladies and gentlemen, this $5 billion is just for 1 year. Can you imagine how many billions have been given out by this corrupt PNM administration to their chosen friends, family, and financiers? And in full view of the public, this is billions of dollars stolen from you, ladies and gentlemen, you taxpayers of this country, our public first, facilitated by PNM ministers and PNM appointed board of directors. Again, I expect that the Minister of Finance will not lift a single finger to deal with this multi-billion-dollar scandal. Why is it, ladies and gentlemen, that the minister has done nothing to address this open corruption taking place under his government and using billions of taxpayers' dollars? While pensioners struggle to make ends meet, they have to choose between rent and medicine and food. Billions are being paid to unknown persons in contracts awarded under the watchful eye of PNM ministers and PNM cabinet appointees. I leave you, ladies and gentlemen, you citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, to ask yourself why. For me, it is clear. For me, it is clear. There's a simple fix, ladies and gentlemen, which the PNM will never do because they and their friends are complicit in this illegality, robbing the treasury to fill their private pockets. The leader of the opposition has already committed to eliminate the corruption that the PNM is now engaged in by strengthening the procurement legislation and by providing the resources required by the Office of the Procurement Regulator to ensure that they can persecute and prosecute the offenders under this legislation, ladies and gentlemen. This country has already been robbed of $5 billion in 1 year, and obviously, in this election year, the figure will be even higher. Our UNC government will provide the Office of the Procurement Regulator with the resources it needs to ensure that a comprehensive list of these and subsequent contracts awarded in violation of the law is produced, and those engaged in breaking the law are brought to justice, both the PNM officials and the PNM financiers, friends, and family involved in this massive corruption scandal. I predict, ladies and gentlemen, that PNM bigwigs, board members, and maybe even ministers themselves involved in this corruption scam will find themselves in jail for their actions. We will protect the public purse from this PNM frenzy. It never ceases to amaze me, ladies and gentlemen, how unwilling this government is to act when it comes to protecting the public purse or for the benefit of citizens. It is pure hate, but they're acting normal. Imbert and his colleagues have facilitated the stealing of billions of dollars of taxpayers, but tells you that there's no money. Tighten your belt. And then on top of that, introduce property tax so that they could generate more money for them to steal. I want to spend a few minutes more, ladies and gentlemen, on another one of Com Imbert's spectacular failures, one that should trouble every citizen of this country. Today we find ourselves trapped in a relentless foreign exchange crisis, born directly out of the absolute failure and incompetence of none other than the Minister of Finance himself, Com Imbert. I have persistently warned about this looming crisis, and today, sadly, we have arrived at that unfortunate reality. Today, we as a country owe more than we have. Our external debt is now surpassed by our foreign exchange reserves. This government is borrowing to pay loans and then borrowing against that to pay the new loans, sabotaging not just our current economic status, but our country's future for generations to come. International creditors, ladies and gentlemen, hold first claim on these reserves. And if we had to settle all our debts today, we would be left without sufficient funds to import a single grain of food or medicine. Not one day's worth of imports. That is the stark reality that we face, thanks to Keith Rowley, Com Imbert, and the PNM government. It is no coincidence then, ladies and gentlemen, that this PNM government has been systematically disposing of our valued national assets, from Petrotrin to shares in Clico, MHDL, and even the Magdalena Hotel. They are selling off our nation's patrimony piece by piece, leaving future generations with nothing to inherit but debt and despair. And they are doing it in the dark, like true economic hitmen, ladies and gentlemen. Micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, the backbone of our economy, have been hardest hit by this ongoing foreign exchange crisis, victims of the foreign exchange cartel crafted by this government. You see, while large conglomerates enjoy privileged access to foreign exchange, foreign currency at market rates, MSMEs, the true engines of growth, are left fighting for scraps. Since 2023, Imbert has promised to provide an access to foreign exchange to SMEs. Since 2023, ladies and gentlemen, what has he created? A catalytic fund financed by CAF, where the minister himself, Minister Imbert, is conveniently cited as chairman. But let's examine what that catalytic fund is. This fund, administered by Exim Bank, targets SMEs that meet specific conditions. They must demonstrate viability, show export potential, and operate within specific sectors, including the creative industries, ICT, agriculture, renewable energies, and manufacturing, etc. Now, on the surface, this sounds good on the surface, but here's the reality. SMEs don't get foreign exchange directly. They must borrow it and pay interest on top of it. When you add the interest on top of the currency value, it is cheaper for these SMEs to buy on the black market. Only Imbert and his handlers, ladies and gentlemen, can tell you if this is a deliberate act to drive businesses to the now thriving black market, and who are the big players in the foreign exchange cabal that is benefiting from this massive illegal trade. Meanwhile, large conglomerates freely accept foreign exchange at market rates, and small businesses, on the other hand, must shoulder extra costs just to survive and grow. The foreign exchange cartel which controls the distribution of foreign exchange, with the full endorsement of the Minister of Finance, will continue to ensure, ladies and gentlemen, that only friends, family, and financiers of the PNM will have easy access to foreign currency. You know, ladies and gentlemen, today, our three main foreign exchange generating streams are borrowing on the international market, raiding the HSF, and selling off national assets. Where is the productive capacity to generate foreign exchange so that we could pay the debts that we are incurring now? Where is the productive capacity? It has not happened, ladies and gentlemen, because of the incompetence, mismanagement, and misfocus of the Minister of Finance and this PNM government. But you see, while SMEs struggle to get even the smallest amount of foreign exchange, this PNM administration has been conveniently shipping millions of US dollars to PNM friends. The PNM has spent a staggering 12 million US dollars, 12 million US dollars, hard currency, scarce hard currency, on a Washington, DC-based lobbying firm, the Group DC. This firm, led by Art Collins, a known supporter of the PNM, was contracted in October 2016 at the ridiculous rate of $100,000 US per month, with no specific measurable terms of reference. The justification for this massive expense remains unclear, with no measurable benefits being provided to the nation. You know, countries frequently use lobbyists to influence US policy to their benefit. But it is only acceptable when the outcomes are evident and measurable. Where is the proof that Trinidad and Tobago has benefited significantly or at all from this lavish spending? Today, as citizens live in fear of the consequences of the PNM's government's anti-Trump rhetoric since 2015, and especially at the risk of the loss of dragon gas, which my colleague dealt with extensively, I challenge the Minister, Colin Burt, to provide to the population a comprehensive breakdown of all the advice and all the reports that this company has been providing to the country of Trinidad and Tobago. Show the country which projects this entity has been able to bring to Trinidad and Tobago. What specific foreign investments have they brought to earn them $100,000 US per month since 2016, a total of $12 billion to date? Prove to the country, ladies and gentlemen, that this PNM government didn't just throw away $12 million US to a political friend. Finance Minister Colin Burt recently attempted to defend these massive lobbying payments by claiming that they seek opportunities for the country. I challenge Burt today to tell the country exactly what opportunities have been created other than a trip to the US by the Prime Minister to sit in an office and make a phone call to a State Department. There is no foreign exchange for businesses that generate revenue, that employ people, for SMEs who are involved in commercial activity, but the government is committed to direct taxpayers' money into a politically linked company that lacks accountability. The UNC will audit the performance of this lobbyist company and provide to the national population exactly what I just asked for. This free-for-all must end. As citizens, we must get money. We must get value for money, ladies and gentlemen. It still gets worse. My colleague, my brother Dr. Lee, just raised an issue. He just referenced a headline, ladies and gentlemen. Real dragon gas negotiations will now take place. That's frightening, ladies and gentlemen, because recently the country was reminded by the PNM government that the PNM had in fact made substantial payments in US dollars to Venezuela in specific relation to this dragon gas deal. They had already made payments, and you are now saying that real negotiations are now coming? According to a recent Express article, and I quote, last May, Young said that Trinidad and Tobago was already paying a portion of over $1 million US per year in taxes to Venezuela as part of the deal. The same article ironically continues. He, that is the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Energy, Minister Young, he said that the payments due to Venezuela consisted of royalty, a special commission of 5%, surface tax, and social contributions totaling US $1 million and a confidential signing bonus. This is information that is already in the public domain. Today, I think the country needs to know. Which is it? Is it $1 million US per year or $1 million US paid so far for royalty commissions, tax, and social contributions? Who have these payments been made to? Who has received the special commission of 5%? And 5% of what? Exactly what social contributions has the taxpayer of this country been providing to? Exactly what social contributions have the taxpayers of this country been providing our scarce resources or scarce US dollars to? The Minister of Energy, when asked, flippantly claimed that all these payments are normal. Well, they may be normal to him, and that should worry every citizen, by the way. But citizens do not trust anything that this government is saying or doing when it comes to the resources of this country. We must never forget that this is the same minister that claimed that he didn't know who was coming on the sanctioned plane during COVID when he and Prime Minister Rowley engaged in a secret meeting with the Preservistas team. That entire fiasco remains shrouded in mystery up to today because of the multitude of conflicting stories both have been providing to the media. Today, we are flippantly being told of millions of US dollars being spent without detail. Nevertheless, the country needs answers. It is obvious that Minister Young will provide no further detail in this normal, arrogant, empty attitude and empty style. But given that a substantial amount of scarce foreign exchange has been spent and would have had to be approved by the Minister of Finance, I challenge Colm Imbut today, again, to provide the details of these payments. Ladies and gentlemen, while I expect that Colm Imbut will continue to turn a blind eye to the corruption and wastage taking place under him because it facilitates PNM colleagues, there's one serious issue that he can in fact address immediately. In December last year, the government introduced a bill in Parliament called the Miscellaneous Provisions Senior Citizens Pension and Public Assistance Bill 2024. The purpose of this legislation, according to the bill itself, was, and I quote, to align some of the terms used with more contemporaneous and internationally accepted terms, to revise the criteria that must be met to qualify or to continue to receive a pension, and to establish penalties for these breaches. It was the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, ladies and gentlemen, who on examination of the bill highlighted the true nefarious intent of this bill, which was to include a provision at Clause 4G of the bill that states, and I quote, "An individual shall not be eligible to receive a pension unless he has savings not exceeding $25,000. Let me translate that for you. That means that if you, over the last 65 years of your life, managed to save $25,000, you will no longer be entitled to a pension. The very next day, Line Minister Donna Cox was first to respond, confirming that this clause was deliberately inserted to prevent persons who had managed to save this $25,000 over 65 years of their life, because that meant that they were not in need and were somehow abusing the intent of the pension system. Well, ladies and gentlemen, your public outcry was immediate, forcing the calling of yet another press conference just hours later, including the same minister, in which the government now claimed that the clause, that same offensive clause, was in fact an error put in place by some unnamed public servant. True to form, the AG stated then that the bill will be withdrawn and replaced. Nobody believed Minister Donna Cox, nor the Attorney General in this matter, and history has proven them right. Since then, the House of Representatives has had sittings both in January and in February of this year. Nobody is surprised that the bill was never withdrawn and remains tabled for debate in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. It is obvious that the true intent of the PNM has always been to punish the elderly for saving up for their old age. It is an act of spite, malice, and ill will. And on behalf of all pensioners and indeed all citizens, I call on the Minister of Finance to immediately remove this draconian legislation from the Parliament. Fix it before you go, Coleman Booth. As I close, ladies and gentlemen, the last 10 years has been a decade of death, and destruction under the PNM. The Minister of Finance has compromised the integrity of the country's economy. He has dragged this country into the valley of death. He and his Prime Minister have sold the country's future to Maduro, pinning all of their hopes on a pipe dream of dragon gas. Under Imbert, corruption and illegality in the use of state resources and our taxpayers have become the norm. Let me repeat that, ladies and gentlemen. Under Imbert, under Con Imbert as Minister of Finance, corruption and illegality in the use of state resources and our tax dollars have become the norm. We can expect no change because the entire government is complicit. I assure this nation that a UNC government will not just return this country to good governance, but will ensure that those PNM bigwigs who have engaged in wanton corruption, robbing our citizens, will be made to pay for their transgressions. Ladies and gentlemen, the UNC has the personnel. We have the experience. We have the track record of improving lives and standard of living of all our citizens. I want to remind you, citizens, ladies and gentlemen, that when the UNC wins, everybody wins. We did it once, and we stand ready to rescue Trinidad and Tobago again. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I now ask my colleague, Dr. David Lee, to join me back at the podium, and we will be taking any questions that may be forthcoming from members of the media, either online or who are here present today.
David.
Well done.
I have a question. Hi. Personally, here from CSD3. Wait, hi.
Hello.
So I will start with you, Mr. Tancoo.
Sure.
And I just really have one question based on your speech just now. And the question is, you said, when we, which is the UNC, gets into office, you will, no, I can't find the question, I can write it down. Right, you said, when we form government, those responsible for destroying our country will be investigated and brought to justice. You said a lot about Finance Minister coming. My question to you is, why not now? Why wait until you get into office? And what happens if it is the UNC is not successful in the next general election?
Well, that's really easy to answer. At this point, the government is the entity that has the resources, the capability, or the Attorney General's office, the DPP's office, etc. That's where the resources are. The police service, etc. That's where the resources are to conduct the kinds of investigations that are required to ensure that this kind of nefarious conduct by the Minister of Finance and by other ministers are dealt with. That's where the resources are. I don't think that there's I think the second part of the question, what happens if the UNC does not win the election? God forbid. Because that means that the criminal conduct that we have experienced as a country under this PNM administration will continue. And I think citizens of this country are no longer ready and willing and able to allow that kind of facilities to continue. I think citizens of this country want a change, and they know that the only way they can make that change is to vote in a new government.
And you said, well, you talk about the resources, you're not having the resources to, file a report to, as a citizen. If you happen to get those resources as an opposition member, is that something you will consider?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes.
I have a question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Lee. And my question is in relation to the investor. in relation to the petroleum refinery. You know, back in August, the UNC's criticism, or let me just say, raised questions about gender, right? PNM would have said, blamed you guys for chasing away the investor, even though you guys said, you know, you were not remorseful of that. My question is, I want to tell those watching these supporters, why is it important? Because, you know, chasing away an investor doesn't sound good for the country. Prime Minister says he does everything on behalf of the citizens of this country, and something we maybe don't need or we can't take at this time. My question to you, what I would like you to tell your supporters is, why is this important? Why are you raising, you know, about this next investor now? Why is this important?
Well, let me put it in this way. When the Jindal story came up by this government as a potential investor, and we raised concerns about Jindal, if Jindal was a serious investor, do you really believe Jindal would have moved away because of what the opposition raised? Or was it, so that's the first question, was he really a serious investor in that refinery, or was it just another red herring that he really wanted something else? And our information at Jindal really wanted the iron and steel plant in Point Lisas, which is his main source of business, which he has also in a relationship in Venezuela. So that's where we raised concerns about Jindal, and Jindal flew away. And if Jindal was really a serious investor, he would have stayed and he would have worked the system and ensured or meet with the opposition to give the assurances that everything was above board and he was a serious investor. So we don't really believe Jindal was a serious investor to start with. We now have a second player in Oando, all right, of Nigeria, and there are concerns with Oando, and we have a role as a I kept saying it a year ago, that every time elections in the air, they raise the sale or the lease of the refinery to excite the population. And the question has to, the population must remember, they are the ones that destroyed the Petrotrin refinery, the Pointe-a-Pierre refinery. They shut it down. They shut it down, and if they had kept it going as a going concern, it would have been so much more valuable today that they get a very good investor, buyer as a going concern. You saw it with the WGTL that they sold to Nikon. I spoke about Nikon and the disaster that could happen, the investment that went into Nikon, and Nikon abandoned, they went into receivership, and they left the taxpayers owing money. They owe us money as taxpayers based on that whole debacle, which we call the Nikon. So we have concerns, and that is the role of us. That is what Mr. Tancoo's role here this morning is, to raise concerns about the economy. This is my role as a shadow for energy, is to raise concerns. All right, we keep raising concerns about the energy sector, and that is what we are here about. And I'm saying that the population must not be fooled at this 99 hour by Prime Minister Rowley and the de facto incoming Prime Minister Stuart Young, because they have destroyed and decimated our energy sector in the last 10 years.
Just to add to that, it cannot be that when the opposition raises concerns that treats with transparency and accountability, that the government blames the opposition for doing its job. That's exactly what Dr. Lee just explained. Our role has been to demand accountability, and we have been doing that. When somebody runs away from a case like that, and this has happened with the Sandals scandal and now with Jindal. When an individual runs away from a true investment situation, it's not because they've been asked to provide transparency. No true, decent, honest investor would be afraid of transparency. In fact, I believe that they will welcome it. And I think it is to the country's benefit that the opposition has kept these issues of transparency and accountability on the front burner.
And I just want to add to what Mr. Tancoo says, and I use the word patriotism. Tomorrow, Prime Minister Rowley is going to cut a ribbon for the central block in the General Port of Spain Hospital, right? And I asked the media to really ask them some hard questions, why they abandoned a full hospital in the Cuba Children's Hospital, and they never opened it up to today after 10 years. But they could go and cut a ribbon tomorrow for a central block in the Port of Spain General to get his name on a plaque. I want the media to really dissect what is happening tomorrow. Okay.
And since they're cutting the ribbon, find out if they have any equipment inside of there, or if this is just an empty shell of a building that they're mamagaing citizens that they're now starting to open a hospital.
Why do you think the hospital remained vacant for 10 years?
Spite, malice, contempt for anything that is done in this country for the good of the people that is not done by the PNM party. It's pure malice and spite.
I have other questions not related for the UNC,
Sure.
but related to your press conference today. Is that okay?
Yeah. It depends.
Yeah. I would like to ask, I don't know if you guys would have read the paper today. I saw Stuart Young's comments on social media reform. I just wanted to get the opposition's take on that, view on what he's going to do.
Well, I think I'll let the chairman, Mr. Tancoo, and I could add to.
Well, we haven't heard much about what the intention actually is. Is the government now saying that they're going to limit use, they're going to police the use of social media? Is that what the government is saying? Because logically, social media is there for a purpose. And a lot of the information coming out against this government has been via social media. It's very interesting that that has become the issue for the minister. Interestingly enough, I think one of my other colleagues has mentioned it. This comes about as the minister, Stuart Young, addressing these women conferences, have stated that it is his intention to police social media to protect to prevent the abuse of women, etc. That is an unfortunate situation, because this is the same gentleman who is now on public. It has nothing to do with social media, but it may have been the reason why he's so offended by social media, because social media provided evidence of his misconduct, his attack against a female parliamentarian, that he now commits to looking and policing social media. Is Stuart Young looking at policing social media because he was caught in flagrante abusing a female parliamentarian?
I just want to add, if you ask me the question if Stuart Young would do that, what he says about policing social media, I would say no. It's a good soundbite as an individual who is aspiring to be the next Prime Minister of this country, hand-given that or appointed that position. So I really don't believe Stuart Young will keep his word in that, because for the last 10 years, he sat with individuals in his government who said the most degrading aspects, words used degrading on women of our country in Trinidad and Tobago, and he said nothing. So why I would feel comfortable that Stuart Young would do anything different? He would not.
I think the media has given Stuart Young a free pass, because they seem to have forgotten that he was part and parcel of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, not a small player, a major player in the last decade, you know. All of these plans and policies and programs and actions that he's planning to do, that he's suddenly revealing, why didn't he do it then, at any point in time in the last decade? It's all PR for elections. And under the PNM, promises never materialize.
And with an election, pending re-election season, we just want to ask the UNC's manifesto. And can we UNC.
When you get the PNM manifesto, we'll give you the. What we have, and to add, we have always rolled out. If you listen to our Monday night forums, the political leader, the opposition leader, whenever she speaks, she has rolled out plans. We have rolled out certain aspects of our medical health area, education, and so forth, crime. But as I always say, we have a manifesto in place, and we roll it out as a leader speaks. But I ask you to ask the PNM or even Stuart Young when they will be getting their manifesto.
Just again, fact be fact. The UNC doesn't wait for an election to put together ideas and to provide the ideas to the population about how to treat with crime or the economy or healthcare. We have been doing that continuously at our meetings, at our Monday night meetings. Even today, several initiatives were notified, and every time we have meetings, we tell the country what we are going to do because we are capable and we have a history and a track record of doing what we say we will, unlike the PNM.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have some questions sent in from Newsday and The Guardian. This is, and these are for Chairman Tancoo. This is from Larissa Fraser, Newsday. She says that she apologizes for not being able to physically attend, and she asks, has the party found it more challenging than anticipated to find suitable election candidates? And do you think the party will be ready with regards to saying whenever the election date is announced?
That's easy. The party had a wealth of information and personnel to select from. The UNC is absolutely ready for a general election whenever Prime Minister Keith Rowley or new Prime Minister incumbent Stuart Young calls the election. We are ready.
And two questions from The Guardian along the same lines. When will the UNC's full team of candidates be presented, as the PNM is presenting theirs next Sunday? And what is the party's view on continuing departures, including some going to the NTA? And do you think those who have left or distanced themselves will go to the NTA and or other parties to fight the UNC?
Okay, so first part of the question first. The candidates will be named as and when required in the course of the build-up towards the general election. I think people are a little bit confused. Members of the public may be confused that a nominee remains a nominee until nomination day, when that document is signed by the returning officer, and then they become a candidate. So even now, as you would have seen it with the PNM announced a candidate for, I think it was Tabakit, and changed midstream. Another one for Komoto Manzanilla and changed midstream. The UNC will announce its candidates when we are ready. The second question is as to the persons departing the UNC and joining whichever. This is a free and democratic country. The UNC is a disciplined, productive party. Persons are free to go wherever they want, and I'm very glad to see more persons offering themselves to public office. But running a country is not a tea party. Running a country is not about looks, it's not about speeches. Running a country, I've had the benefit of sitting in the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago as financial advisor to the Prime Minister, and running a country is serious business. Citizens should take a look at the persons offering themselves and determine whether they are really, truthfully capable of running a country. And I think that if they look at that parameter, just as to what these people can do if they ever end up in office. We have already seen what the PNM can do. We have already seen what the UNC has been able to do. I think citizens will be very aware of individuals who are in this thing for other reasons. I have noticed, we have seen this before in I think last local government election, there have been structured group issues where people would have left the UNC in a coordinated, or the leader of the opposition has said it's a coordinated, orchestrated way. That is par for course. That's politics. You would also have noticed that more people are joining the UNC because as long as you want to see improvement in this country, the UNC is the place to be. others who are supportive of the PNM are welcome to go ahead and join their organizations that support the PNM.
That's it. All right, before we end, I'd just like to remind the viewers out there, even the media who is here present, that tomorrow night we have our Monday night cottage meeting that will be taking place at St. Mary's Government Primary School at Moruga, Tableland. We have a battery of speakers. Our feature speakers, none other than our honorable political leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa, and a powerful lineup of speakers, and also the incumbent Member of Parliament, Michelle Benjamin, will also be in that lineup. So again, thank you this morning. And as my colleague is reminding us here this morning, as a good Catholic, I said I would like to wish my Catholic family as we go into the Lenten season, over the next few weeks, we are in the holy course. Also to our Muslim brothers and sisters, as we partake in the Ramadan time, we go with God and we go with Allah, and we thank you this morning for being and listening to us this morning. I want to thank my brother, Mr. Davendranath Tancoo, Member of Parliament for Oropouche West, for joining myself and giving you all the information that the opposition is here to inform you of what is happening in your country with this present government. So again, thank you for listening, and stay tuned tomorrow night in Moruga, Tableland. Thank you.
Thank you all.
But one of the things I promised is that we will listen to what's happening around, and we've been listening, and whatever we could have done, we've been doing so far. You're bigger than what I remember you last time, so we're standing up to make a difference in this country, boy. And we're interested in making sure that in San Fernando West, we are listening to what the issues are. I just talked to Supers there, he tell me about the water situation on that side. In speaking with all of our constituents in San Fernando West, crime was highlighted, issues of drainage, garbage collection, and we spoke to the Alderman Viliana Ramota Singh and all our councillors, and they really went to the city and ensured that something was done about it. The team here is in San Fernando West. We are on the ground, so I want to see what's happening around West St. Joseph with my friend Devish.
Davis March, I'm the UNC candidate. West St. Joseph. What's your name?
Braffett.
Braffett?
Yeah.
Braffett, how old are you, boy?
68.
Nah.
As a young man.
He's okay, 52, boy.
We started building back here before too much went on the other side that we had to come down to First Street. So, like somebody know the minister, and they get box drains and paved road and all kind of stuff up to the drain. We're on the other side of the drain. You know the story about the other side of the tracks, but we're on the other side of the drain. So we ain't getting fixed up and we're getting flooded. I would just like to know that we have somebody there who we can talk to.
Right now we are on 7th Street, Mount Lambert. I have met so many lovely people on this street. Very reserved, some of them, but they've all come out and they've given us very, very encouraging comments. Some of them have openly declared their support, for which I am very, very thankful. Others at least saying they will consider and think about it, but really, really a wonderful community. I have had no pushback from anybody whatsoever. As a matter of fact, it's very, very welcoming. Thank you very much. When UNC win, everybody wins.